Hey guys, my name is Ty. I run a social media marketing agency, and in this video, I'll be walking you through some of the lessons I've learned from spending the last month as a digital nomad entrepreneur. Now, this video is going to be super informal, just very off the cuff, but love to share with you guys some of the lessons that I've learned over the last month or so living as a remote digital nomad. Now, the very first thing is kind of giving credit to the source material. I found out about digital nomading from my good friend and mentor, Adam Walsh. We actually hosted a training about this over the summer, and he taught me a lot of the things that he learned living as a digital nomad for over a year, scaling his digital marketing agency, traveling the world, doing all of that fun stuff. So a lot of the things that I learned came from him, but now I've actually learned them by going out and doing these things. So without further ado, let's get into the video. If you guys enjoy this video, or you're interested in following my journey, or you're interested in learning more about online business, please drop a like and subscribe. It really helps out with the algorithms. Now, the first thing you want to think about when you're deciding to go digital nomading is, where do you actually want to go? For me, I've spent the last month or so in 4 different states. I've spent a lot of time in Florida, Georgia, a couple places in Georgia, North Carolina, and then now I'm in Colorado. It's absolutely beautiful here. And the reason I chose those places was, one, because they were close, right? I live in Florida, so being able to go up to Georgia, North Carolina, there wasn't a whole lot of travel time involved in those places. But two, was there's things and people in those places that I wanted to go see. So if you have friends that live in another country, or you have friends that you can travel with, it makes the experience so much better. Now, when you're deciding where you want to go, beyond that, you might want to think about, where is the best place to go for the time of the year? There's this idea that I've heard about from some other very elite entrepreneurs, young guys who have money and like to travel a lot. They call it the circuit. It's this idea that there is different countries and cities to go during different times of the year, depending on what's going on and how the seasons are. So for example, I know like Cape Town, Milan, Miami, Tulum, Mexico, places like that are all in the circuit. And a lot of these people will go to those places at the same time, either because the prices are cheap or because there's some event like Fashion Week or something like that is going on. So you can do something like that. You can either follow the circuit that most people follow. I won't talk about that too much here because obviously I was not going to those places. Or you could build your own circuit, which I'm a huge fan of. I think it's awesome to have different places that are designed for different things. So you could have a place that you use as a tool. You have a certain place that you go when you're in a season of work, where you really just want to have peace and quiet and build systems, focus on scaling your business. And then you could have places that you go to be a little more social, to have a little more fun. You can also have places that you go during certain times of the year. So for me, I spent a lot of time in Savannah back in like December and January, because the weather there is phenomenal. It's very close to us. It's just a wonderful city. Like, that's a city that would be on my circuit if I were to build one out. And every year I could put that on my circuit and go there at a certain time of the year, just because I enjoy the weather, or because I have a season where I need to focus, or season where I want to be social, whatever it is. The idea here is that you can actually use this as a tool to make more money or just live life to the fullest. Another thing that's going to be important is for you to decide what actually matters to you when you're traveling. So for me, because I'm obviously working, I'm scaling my business while I travel, it's super important that I have really strong Wi-Fi. That's a non-negotiable. I also like to stay in Airbnbs that are relatively nice, maybe not luxury, but they're pretty big. They have modern fixtures. That's important to me. Another thing that I found that I really enjoy is showers and bathtubs. Like, that is so important to me. I went to some Airbnbs with some really sick showers and bathtubs. So that's kind of on the list now, as strange as that one might sound. But yeah, those are some things that you might want to keep top of mind when you're deciding where you want to go. It's like, what is really important to you? Are you trying to travel and really focus on traveling and doing that while on a budget? Or do you want to live more of like that high life? And are there certain things to an Airbnb or a property that's going to matter a lot to you? Another thing you want to think about is, what are you actually going to pack? And this is going to depend on where you're going, of course, and how you're getting there. For example, I'm in Colorado right now, and Colorado is nowhere near Florida, so I had to take a plane to get here, and that means that I had to pack a lot lighter, versus when I went to Savannah, I could literally drive from Florida to Savannah. So anything that fit in my car, I was able to take. So when you're traveling, you have to be very intentional with what you bring. Something I'd recommend everyone bring is a pair of noise-canceling headphones. These are my Apple AirPod Max. I bring these with me everywhere I go because the noise canceling on these guys are phenomenal. Like you put these on and you can't hear anything. You can't hear anything at all. So beyond just, of course, a high quality pair of headphones and of course the laptop, whatever it is that you'll need to work, you should also be very intentional with what clothes you pack. I have just these one pair of shoes. Can we put the shoes? Oh boy.
Officer, I got one question for you. What are those?
Very basic shoes, but they're super comfortable. They're pretty durable, so I've worn these everywhere. They're not very fashionable, but it's been great because I've been going, like, of course, when you're traveling, you're going to be walking a lot. So having a really good pair of shoes that you can bring with you everywhere, super important. Beyond that, just clothes that are very easy to make outfits out of, just plain color shirts and things like that. If you can find a place with a washer and dryer, that is so important because you need to do laundry when you're traveling, or you'll need to pack enough clean clothes to last you however long you're traveling. So super important that you bring clothes, a good pair of shoes, everything that you need to work, and yeah, make sure that you can find a place with a washer and dryer if you can. Another thing to think about is how long are you actually going to go to these places? If you're going for short-term trips, like anything less than a week, you're probably gonna be pretty hard pressed for time. It's gonna be very difficult for you to work and also travel and enjoy the things that you wanna do. I did a couple trips where I was out for just a couple of days, and when you travel, your travel days are pretty much a wash. Like you'll be tired from driving or on flights or whatever it is. So you're not gonna get a whole lot of work done that day, but also you'll have to rest and recover from that. And then once you're actually rested and recovered, you'll want to go out, you'll want to see things. You'll have to find, where do I go for food? Where do I go for this and that? So it's super important that you have longer trips planned. For me, some of the most restless trips were the ones that were just a few days. In fact, some of the best trips that I've taken over the last month were the ones that were a little longer. So be very intentional with how long you're spending at these places. Plus, when you travel for longer, it actually ends up being cheaper. I know Airbnb, they'll give you a discount if you stay for like a week or a month or whatever it is. They have like long-term rental discounts. So that's another quick hack for you there. Also, when you're traveling, because it is so exhausting to travel and because nothing really gets done, it's really important that you have just some quick work that you can do. Like having Slack on your phone is not something that you'd usually recommend for productivity, but when you're on cabs and waiting for flights and things like that, it's good to just be able to pull out your phone and for like 10-15 minutes just be able to get some really light work done. It's not going to be your best quality work, but just to be able to use that time intentionally is super important as well. And on that note of intentionality, while you're traveling and working, you'll still need to sit down and build out a plan for your day. That's probably the biggest mistake that I made. Is I was traveling for too short of a time. I was super engaged in like the activities of the trip, and also I wasn't really planning my days just because there's so much. And like when you're traveling, you really don't know. There's a lot of variability, especially when you travel to like far places. I know that when I was taking flights to North Carolina and to Colorado, the flights were sometimes delayed or like things happen. So there's a lot that can happen, and it's very difficult for you to like actually sit down and get work done if you don't plan it. So very important that you have that intentionality with it. And again, when you're traveling, probably just don't book any meetings for those days unless they're very far off from when you're actually going to be moving, because there's so much that can happen with that. It was an absolute nightmare some of those days. I remember there was this one time when I was stuck in the car for like 6 hours, like stuck in traffic for a solid 6 hours. So I missed a bunch of calls, absolute nightmare. Be very intentional with your time and be very cautious when you're traveling and trying to work at the same time. Another thing that you guys, I'm sure you're all thinking this right now, how much did this cost and how do you actually afford to go out and travel full time? Well, I'll tell you this, right? It definitely wasn't as much as I was expecting it to be. It was more than I would have spent if I stayed home and worked in my office for a month, but it really wasn't all that bad. Like I think most people, if they really put their mind to it and they really wanted to do this, they could travel in digital nomad, of course, so long as they have remote work. I'm blessed enough to have a company that I can work from remotely. So that makes it very, very easy for me to do these things. But really, most people probably can do digital nomading. If you are very intentional with how you're spending your money and how you're budgeting it, if you're using apps like Skyscanner for flights, if you're using Airbnbs, filtering by price, looking at long-term rentals, you can save a lot of money there. And also with things like Ubers and Lyfts, there's ways you can spend money by just waiting for cabs. I know there was this one time where I waited another, I think 5 minutes for my cab, but it was a whole $15 cheaper. So be very intentional with how you spend your money there. Also, if you're planning meals and being strategic with that, there are ways that you can travel and not break the bank. I think over the last month or so, I only spent a few $1,000s digital nomading, and that's in staying in some pretty nice places. So it really wasn't all that bad, but of course you still need to have a remote job. You need to plan for these things, and you need to be intentional with how you spend your money and think about what really matters to you when you're traveling. All right, guys, that is it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something from this video. And if you guys are interested in learning more about online business, if you're interested in following my journey from basically 0 to 6, 7, 8 figures and beyond, please do drop a like and subscribe to this channel. If you guys would love to connect, I'll drop my Instagram up here as well. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.